the problem that the W is having right now is they have a lot more attention on a league that is not ready for attention in some very key areas. It's just not run well. And that goes to the commissioner's office and bragging about private flights on our show. And it took us 1 week to fully put it together. And then 2 days later in an interview being like, it'll be ready fully after the Olympic break.
It took us 1 week to get it up and running fully for the regular season as of last Tuesday. So 1 week.
Hold on. 1 week to get it full. And I'm going to make sure I didn't rewind.
Decision. But I finally felt we were in the right place. It took us 1 week to get it up and running fully for the regular.
Up and running fully, she says.
Yep.
Up and running fully. And then in an interview 2 days later, she says, it's a Rubik's Cube and we'll have it up by after the Olympic break in late August. And you're like, ma'am, you just said what, but but another thing I mentioned, Anthony, and part of the reason I think that the Caitlin Clark Kennedy Carter situation gets out of control and the narrative runs wild is because it was not adjudicated properly in the game. If the referees call a flagrant foul, it feels like the justice has been done and people generally keep it moving. And sure enough, last night, the same exact crap that it fits in the narrative, thanks to refereeing, happens. Where Angel Reese is treated poorly. And the league has fixed this today. But if you missed it, Angel Reese gets called for a foul she doesn't like. She says something probably, but generally is just like dismissive of the ref in a way that I feel like a lot of players are. But she gets teed up. And then she gives the meekest of whatever. It's kind of like, you teed me up. All right, whatever. I'll just go. I'll move on. And the ref tees her up again and throws her out of the game. What are these refs doing? And by the way, the answer, sadly, is the same BS they've been doing for years. Like, the refs, and we see this, unfortunately. I mean, I don't think that anyone's going to be like, yeah, the refereeing in my favorite sport is awesome. Because nobody likes referees. It's just part of the gig. But I think in the NFL and the NBA, there's like, we also understand that it's a hard job. And generally speaking, these guys and women that do it are exceptional. Dude, as someone who's been a women's sports fan for a long time and also like seen college women's officiating and lower league men's officiating in college, it is so bad and it's embarrassing. And part of it is like the league, to defend the league a little bit here, is the league has been under-resourced for so long that they can't afford the best of the best. And they can't afford to give the officials training and be the professional grade. And I think this is like part of the existential fight, I think, often for women's sports in general, because they have traditionally been underfunded and under-resourced in a way that is just completely inappropriate. Is by far in the NWSL and the WNBA, the best thing about the league is the players. And I think in the last couple of years, the coaching has gotten a lot higher to that standard. We've seen it definitely in the NWSL. The NWSL coaches 5 years ago had no business coaching at the highest level of anything. And they got kicked out by a bunch of owners that were like, we have the resources to go get the best coaches. And now the coaching and thus the quality of play in the league is much higher. I think that's happened in the W. You're seeing coaches get paid in the W in a way that it's better to be a W head coach than it is to be an assistant in the NBA or at the college level. And so you get better people doing the stuff. The players, this is the highest level, and it's never been an issue. But from front office people to referees, the under-resourcing of these leagues has caused absolute crap level of officiating, amongst other things, running administration, events, marketing, etc. And now that the league has caught fire in a great way, and there are more eyes on it, the ineptitude at any number of levels, because there still are really bad coaches and inept GMs and the whole thing, and part of that's just sports, but the ineptitude at multiple levels, Anthony, I think is being exposed in a major way, because that's what happens when you you put light somewhere, is you see some things. And there's a lot of light right now in the WNBA.
I mean, I think you said it perfectly.
Add it to the reel. Add it to the reel of things where I planned on having more of a back and forth with Anthony, and then I got rolling because I'm the host of the show, and that's kind of my job. And then I said the thing, and Anthony's just kind of like, "Oh, now you want me to talk?" Terrible job out of me, Anthony. I left you high and dry.
I was about to say, what do I add here? Good job,
in.
Craig.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes that's a producer's job.
Hey, there it is.
Just inflate the ego of the host. Now there's hundreds of, if not thousands of people listening being like, "Sir, you and your ego do not need any kind of a boost." When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, it's our Pick 6 at 6, the 6 biggest storylines from the Commanders' OTAs today. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. And today's going to be a fun day. We are live at Capital One Arena, which is currently empty and cavernous, but will be filled with 15, 17 something thousand fans tonight. For the Mystics and Sky, of course, Angel Reese and company in town, Camila Cardozo and company in town. And they were welcomed to town in a way that is terrifying. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. We have a lot of just very cool but random stuff happening today. My pal Drew Carter is going to join us at 4:30 to preview the NBA Finals. You might know him from SportsCenter, but he's also one of the TV voices for the Boston Celtics. And then Matt Turner, the U.S. men's national team goalkeeper, is going to join us. They are in town training and then have a game this weekend at Commanders Field on Saturday. So Matt Turner on the show today. When I woke up this morning, didn't know that was going to happen. So very excited to welcome Matt in at 5:30. But unfortunately, I have to start with what happened last night in D.C. The Sky get to town. They go to their team hotel. And Chennedy Carter, the guard for the Sky, who got in the altercation, if you want to call it that, with Caitlin Clark over the weekend, has a fan, I don't even call him a fan, has a man come up to her with a camera phone out and, according to reports, called her let's call it a racially motivated misogynistic slur, and ultimately then tries to, ask her questions, whatever. Team security steps in to de-escalate. And it is just a terrible situation that is incredibly inhumane, that is incredibly scary and dangerous, because even if quote-unquote all this fan wanted to do was say terrible things and try to get Chennedy Carter in some kind of gotcha moment, you don't know that when he steps up. You don't know whether he's got a weapon or is going to just try to use his hands to cause physical harm. It's incredibly out of bounds, incredibly terrifying, incredibly inhumane. And what makes it even worse, Team Security did a fantastic job, apparently, of de-escalating the situation. Ultimately, the fan, or the man, I need to stop calling him a fan. He's clearly not a fan of anything. He's a not well person. That person posted some portion of the video which left out the part where he used the derogatory language, and then ultimately deleted it. And that's according to multiple Sky players and other folks with the Sky organization, that, this other part very much happened as well. And the reason I focus in on that, the incident itself, obviously that's out of bounds. Fans showing up to either support or boo a team at their hotel is a tale as old as time in sports. It's part of it. It might be something that's new in the W as it gets way, way more attention. And especially something that might happen on a more regular basis. Certainly, though, you typically stand behind barriers, or you're far enough away where you shout whatever you're going to shout, and they generally ignore you and keep it moving. To get that close to inhibit someone's personal space, that's not all right. It's out of bounds. It's not something you do to another person, and I think that is part of what gets lost here is, even though, do I like what Chennedy Carter did in the game over the weekend to Caitlin Clark, and regardless of whether it was Clark or anybody else? Of course not. It was a non-basketball play, but it is also, while being a non-basketball play, something that can happen in a basketball game. That is not new. That is, physical altercations happen in basketball. It is heated. It is competition, all those things. But the thing that I think I find most upsetting about this, or actually not even most upsetting, because a violation of someone's personal space, especially a woman's personal space, in that manner is incredibly upsetting on all levels. But you then match that with the doubting of the story. And that, unfortunately, is a tale as old as time and one that needs to be addressed. The lack of believing women when they say bad things happen to them is why things so routinely happen, or bad things routinely happen to women in this country and, frankly, around the world. Unfortunately, it's not a uniquely American phenomenon. But the idea that a woman says, a man, especially a famous man, in many cases, did a horrible thing to me, and she is not believed, is almost an accepted part of the story. We know that is going to happen. And it is immensely worse, statistically speaking, if you look at how these things work, from assaults to sexual assaults to whatever kind of bad things can happen, verbal assaults to people, black women get believed less frequently than everybody else. And it's a problem. And I don't know. I mean, I have theories onto why I think that happens. None of them are good for anybody. But we need to start by acknowledging the fact, and I got like a tweet this morning about this. Oh, well, Carter, this is just a fan booing. Like, this is sports. And it's like, no, this other terrible thing happened. Like, oh, well, where's that part of the video? And I'm like, you could just believe her. You could just believe Chennedy Carter. You could believe Angel Reese. You could believe Izzy Harrison. You could believe every member of the Sky that talked about this. There's multiple accounts claiming the same story. You could just believe this woman. Why not do that? And I think the problem is, in many respects, often men specifically, which I realize I'm talking to mostly an audience of men right now, men think, oh, I could be falsely accused of this thing. They don't see, they see themselves as more of a risk to be accused than they see the potential for someone close to them to be the victim of some kind of bad thing that happens. And especially if we're just going to be adults about this and be blunt about it, white men, which I'm guessing this was, but I don't know exactly who this person was, but often white men who have some of the loudest voices in this country, in this business, in the industry, around sports especially, and I realize I'm sitting here as a white man saying this, like they see themselves as, oh, that could be me, and they don't have anybody close to them, where like sometimes you hear the very silly mother, sister, daughter, whatever argument when defending women. That could be your daughter, that could be your sister, that could be, it's a human being. Whether they have any relation to you or anybody you know or not, whether it's a friend, a family member, whatever. Why is it so hard for so many people to just believe a woman when she says something that we know happens all the time? Why is it so hard to believe that in a time where we have, the last week of discussion in the WNBA, and Chennedy Carter has been made into this incredible supervillain, you have people being like, I'm Team Caitlyn. And it's like, what? They got in a shoving match on a basketball court. Like, it was not cool what she did. And that's the thing. It's like, Chennedy Carter's not immune to criticism. I've criticized her for that very thing, for how she handled the aftermath. But at the end of the day, like, you just say, hey, that's not cool. You say, we're not going to do it again. And you keep it moving. There's no need for vigilante justice. And then when someone throws racially motivated or misogynistically motivated hate, which is what this was, at this woman, to doubt her story, to gaslight her, to say like, no, this didn't happen, we don't believe you, or even worse, you deserve it. Like, that's not a reflection of her at all. It's a reflection of us as a society. It's a reflection of the people who are saying that, and the reflection is not good. And it is, unfortunately, I think, going to be a bigger part of the reality of the next whatever of the WNBA. And this is, I think, something that I think a lot of people in the league, frankly, struggle with. Because to this point, in a league that is significantly higher percentage, or like is predominantly black, obviously, but also even you get into LGBTQ issues and the hatred that community receives. It's a league that is a significantly higher percentage gay than it is, or than any men's league. And thus, a lot of the people who discriminate either subtly or overtly against those groups have just ignored the league. Or when they say something, it's a chance to trash the league, but nobody really cares. Well, now they're like, I don't know, maybe I want to watch this league. And then they're like, the people I don't like. And now that is conflicting. And so in the league, there's this battle of like, okay, yeah, we want new eyes. We want more attention because it's good for business. We want more people to enjoy our sport. We want the money that comes with that. We want the business. But I think there's a long and just pathetically sad history of when black, specifically women, open their spaces, they have to deal with nonsense like this. And it just shouldn't be that way. That shouldn't be the choice. And I don't I realize that sounds like, wow, you're on such a rant here for justice, and I'll get all the social justice warrior, whatever nonsense that people will send. Like, it comes down to this. People shouldn't have to deal with discrimination. People shouldn't have to fear for their safety because of what they look like. People shouldn't have to fear for their safety for any reason, period. No one should. Whether I, a white man, standing 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, like, I shouldn't have to feel for my safety for any reason. A woman shouldn't, black person shouldn't, white person shouldn't. And so if we agree that people shouldn't have to feel for their safety, that needs to apply to all people. And I just don't get why that is so hard for some people to comprehend. People shouldn't feel for their safety is not a controversial statement. We should believe people when they say bad things happen to them, especially if there is tremendous evidence throughout the entirety of our recorded history of bad things happening to them. That is not an outrageously controversial statement in any way. And yet that is how I'm starting my sports radio show today, when I've spent the entire week begging for this to just be fun again, because last night in this city, Chennedy Carter had to deal with that. And so if your natural reaction to anything I just said is pushback, is anger, is uncomfortableness, I want you to sit with that for a moment. I want you to sit with it and think about why it makes you uncomfortable. Because while your inclination is going to be to say that it's because I'm wrong and you just want me to shut up, the reality is you're uncomfortable because I'm right. And that's not a good thing for me either. I don't want to have to say this. I want it to not be true. But I don't want it to be true by ostriching and putting my head down and pretending it doesn't exist. I want it to be true because I want us to change for the better. And for incidents like this to be something that are completely read about in history books, not something that we're dealing with in the year of our Lord, whoever it is that you pray to, 2024. When we get back on the Hoffman Show, we will talk about more exciting, fun things, but that had to be said as we start NBA Finals preview with Drew Carter in 15 minutes. Coming up in about 12 minutes, Drew Carter from ESPN, you know him from SportsCenter, but he's also actually last time I saw Drew was here because he was calling the Celtics game against the Wizards. Celtics play-by-play man for all the road games this year. As the legendary Mike Gorman was in his final season calling the games at home. Drew Carter joins us. Preview the NBA Finals coming up at 4:30. But Anthony, last night, it's always fun when you do a segment on the radio and then something proves your point. And yesterday at 5:45, it was one of those segments where we were just planned on kind of touching on a topic real quick and moving on. And I kind of got going, and it was about the breaking news at the time that the WNBA had rescinded Angel Reese's second technical and about how bad the officiating is in women's sports in general. And I wound up just kind of going on a mini rant because as someone who's watched a lot of women's sports over the years, like, the officiating's terrible. And by the way, that's not like a gender-specific thing. The more or the less attention a sport gets, and thus the less revenue it has, the less rich a sport is, if you will, the worse the refereeing is because you're not getting the top officials by nature, right? The top basketball officials in the world are going to the NBA, not the W, because it pays better. It's not because they want to ref women or men. It's simply it's a business decision. So it's up to the leagues to better invest in the refereeing to make it better, both in terms of pay and in terms of training and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, because the W and the NWSL and women's soccer at high levels on the international side, but also, like, you look at lower conference men's officiating or high school officiating, it's not good. You know, I mean, high school men, boys or girls. You cover a lot of high school basketball. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad's the officiating?
Man, it is very bad. It's very inconsistent. Coaches are often, going at the refs, and it's just bad stuff. And then we talk about rec basketball. That is an entirely different. Like, it is.
It's bad. But the difference is in, like, the WNBA or even major college basketball, men's or women's. It's like there are stakes there, right? And in high school there is too. Like, I'm not taking away anything from the kids who are competing for, like, real stuff. And look, as someone who played a lot of rec league basketball growing up, like, I care whether I won. But, like, at the end of the day, as an adult, you go like, yeah, they're kids playing hoops. Keep them safe and keep it moving. You know you're not getting the best of the best. If you're in the WNBA, you're in the best women's league in the world, you'd expect really premier, high-level officiating. And so last night, both in an international women's game and on the soccer side and in the W on that side of it, on the basketball side of it, we had just egregious officiating. And I'm like, oh, this sucks to be right again. Oh, this is one of those times that I wish we could just not have to deal with this. So, Anthony, the W side of it was A'ja Wilson, the best player in the world, who is on a heater right now, just absolutely crushing everyone in her path. Had another insane game last night, another one of those where it's like A'ja Wilson is the first player to have this combination of point. I think it was like 30-plus points, 12-plus rebounds, and 6-plus steals in the same game in W history. That was her night last night against the Dallas Wings. She also got hit in the face 3 times. 3. The first 2, not only not like flagrant calls, not a call period. Not a single one. No whistle, no nothing. And you're going, are you sure you got hit in the face? Anthony, did you see this last night?
Yes.
A'ja Wilson was bleeding from the bridge of her nose after the first one. And she got her contact knocked out of her eyeball on the second one. And it's funny because she was screaming at the ref, as you could imagine. And thankfully, the ref didn't do my least favorite thing in refereeing, which is tee up a player for complaining correctly. And I think at that point, if you're the referee and the league's best player is screaming at you while either bleeding or still making sure that she's not bleeding, because they didn't happen that far apart, and holding her contact lens in her hand, you have no choice but to go, yeah, I missed that one. Sorry, A'ja. You can scream at me all you want. So thank God they at least did not tee her up on that. And they did get the third one, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just inexcusable, to be honest. And I think it also just goes to like what you were saying earlier about, making sure the refs are trained. And I just find that a lot of the time, like, these guys are out of position. They're either like trailing the play, and sometimes, they like you might be out of play, but you might be out of position. But it's just too often that is the case. And somebody of Aja Wilson, I don't think she's gonna be out here flopping.
Right. Like, it's one thing to go, hey, we can't call something that we don't see.
Yeah.
But on a human level, if a player's like, my face,
Yeah.
you probably can assume that something bad happened.
Yep.
Now, I just sent you, Anthony, what happened to Jordan Heidema last night. Have you watched this yet?
I just watched it.
So, in the Canada-Mexico game, Jordan Heidema, who is a forward for Canada, is sprinting down the sideline on a run. And she doesn't have the ball, so she is trying to get into open space. She's right on the sideline, and it's right in front of the Canada bench. And a Mexican player, a defender, like, just football tackles, like, blindside blocks her. Like, this is a flag in the NFL. Or as the reporter I sent you the tweet of, she goes, this is not bleeping hockey, because this is the kind of thing that you would see in the NHL. You don't have your head on a swivel. Okay. They're playing soccer or football if you prefer. And this was not called a red card. One, it's a red card because you stop like a transition opportunity and in a way that's not legal. Like that should be a yellow, actually, but depending on where it is on the field, that's borderline red anyway. The fact that you football tackle someone and just blindside them in the middle of nowhere is absolutely a red card. And I think it gets to the point of what I think is so frustrating is, it's one thing if it hurts the competition, but it's also a player safety thing. The lack of good officiating leads to things escalating. And if you do not lay down the law as a referee, you are saying, hey, this relative violence, this sporting violence, sanctioned. We're good. And that's not okay. It's a good hit. And it's against Canada, so maybe they thought they were hockey players.
Man, she decleated her. That's bad stuff.
I can't believe it didn't start a brawl.
Yeah.
Cuz I know enough of those Canadian players. There's some tough cookies over there. And I'm kind of surprised that not a single one of them came up right in front of the Canada bench.
Yeah, oh my God.
It was bad, dude.
I'm still watching.
I can see that. If you missed the original rant yesterday, it's up on the Hoffman W Sports page on YouTube. And, of course, in our podcast feed. The entire show is in the podcast feed every single day. Just search the Hoffman Show on your favorite podcast app. When we get back, we preview the NBA Finals here on your home for Mystics basketball. Yes, that announced this morning. We teased a big station announcement yesterday. That was it, if you missed it. Mystics games now here on the Team 980. Meghan McPeak, the play-by-play voice, will join us live here on set at Capital One Arena at 5 o'clock. But my pal Drew Carter, Celtics play-by-play man, joins us to preview the NBA Finals next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. And it's my pleasure now to welcome in my pal, Drew Carter, play-by-play man for the Boston Celtics. You also might know him from hosting SportsCenter. Drudel, what's up, dude?
Hey, Craig, what's up, buddy? It is a beautiful day in Boston. Everybody's out, of course, for my birthday, but also for Game 1 of the NBA Finals, which is finally here.
I was going to say, I did see it was your birthday. Happy birthday. Very, very exciting day for you that the entire NBA decided to celebrate with the Boston Celtics Game 1 just in your honor. I will tell you, by the way, I'm at Capital One today because we have Mystic Sky tonight. So the last time I saw you, I was like 20 feet over there.
Have the Mystics won a game yet?
Drew, I don't want to talk about it. The answer's no.
Stop. They're actually winless? No.
No, yeah, they're 0-9 right now. But they got Chicago tonight. I think that's a winnable game. And they got Indiana tomorrow. So we'll see. We'll see. Look, we knew it would be thin coming into the year. And then there's been some injuries, including our beloved Brittany Sykes. Drew, the reason I know him is because we went to Syracuse together, as did Slim. But alas, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later on in the show. We have you on to talk about the NBA Finals and this Celtics team that feels like the most maligned conference champion. That, by the way, is 12-2 so far into the NBA Finals that I can certainly remember. What is kind of the mood around both the team and the city? And I ask those as two separate questions. What's the mood around the team? And hopefully the honking behind you is not indicative of how the city feels.
I'm sorry, get used to that. Yeah, I'm walking back to the Garden right now. I just did a meet and greet with Brian Scalabrine.
Oh.
He's Mr. Side Hustle, so he was over at a Levi's store in Seaport. So I'm going back to the Garden right now, getting ready for the pregame show. The mood around the team, Craig, I would say hasn't changed. The only wrinkle here is, Porzingis expected to come back. He's talked the last couple of days. He expects to play tonight. I think he's going to start. He was a little bit coy about, his health level. That's the only thing that's really changed in the last couple of months, to be honest with you. I think, and really since the beginning of the season, they've been super dialed in. They know that they came up short last year and even a couple years before that. But I feel like everyone in the organization feels like this is the time. The two best players are at an age where you typically see the best players win championships if they're going to do that. The team is built perfectly, and I feel like throughout the entire season they've done a pretty good job of keeping the main thing, and, not getting too high or too low or all the cliches. Like they're very focused. So mood around the team hasn't changed. Mood around the city of Boston, I would say there's a lot of pressure on this team. I mean, I'm looking up right now at a huge Celtics flag that's probably 50 feet, and it just happens to be waving right now on the north end. This is a Celtics town right now. It's painted green. The Patriots are horrible. The Red Sox are a joke, and the Bruins have broken everyone's heart the last couple of years. So the Celtics are the team that everyone has kind of pinned their hopes on. And, it is the city of champions, Craig. So, holy cow.
And they're pumped.
That's people confirming that it's the city of champions right there. And it's been too long without a championship, and people feel like this is the team.
Drew Carter live with us from the streets of Boston ahead of Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight. Joe Mazzulla, obviously, incredibly difficult situation that he inherited last year, having to take over for Ime Udoka right on the eve of the season. He's taken a lot of criticism. He's been learning on the job. He's a bright young coach, obviously. Where have you seen Mazzulla improve? And as a guy who got to presumably talk to him throughout the year, what does he talk about, and has he talked about learning as this year has gone on?
Absolutely. He was pretty candid before the season, which is, if you follow the team, he's not always the most candid with the media, but he was pretty open about the fact that, he kind of got dropped in to a situation last year where he sort of went into a shell a little bit. It was, if you think about it, the team's coming off a finals appearance, coming off a scandal with their head coach, and they elevate a guy who was on the second row to become the head coach of the Celtics, who have championship expectations and aspirations. So that's a different spot. He was open about how he had never really been in that position before. He couldn't just, go to the grocery store and be anonymous anymore. People actually cared what he had to say. And I think he sort of felt like he had to play the role of the head coach as opposed to just be Joe. So he came into this year, and he was much more comfortable in it. I think they gave him another vote of confidence by not only hiring him in the first place, but keeping him after the series against Miami last year, which, let's be honest, was kind of a debacle. And I think he came in with a lot more confidence. And this year he's been a little more open with the media, and he's been a lot more proactive with calling timeouts. I think he deserves a lot of credit for how he's managed a really loaded roster, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, but the decision to bring Al Horford off the bench for the majority of the season, how he's managed the minutes of Kristaps Porzingis, who we know has had some injury history, and also Horford, who just turned 38. I think he's done a masterful job. And there's a reason they won 14 more games than anyone in the East.
Drew Carter with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, so the matchups, Drew, I think are fascinating in this series. Who do you think that they stick on Luka? And then, what kind of support does that person get? Is this the kind of thing where you go, hey, Jaylen Brown, Supermax, this is why we pay you all that money, go do your thing? Or is this a team that's going to try to load up and make, the P.J. Washingtons of the world beat them?
The answer is all the above, Craig. I think Jaylen Brown will start on him. That's what happened last time they played March 1st. And, the funny thing about that question is, on paper, I think the Celtics are built to defend Luka about as well as anybody. The roster is stacked with athletic wings and guards who are both all defense. Derek White and Drew Holiday both made second team all defense this year. And then Tatum and Brown should theoretically be able to check him pretty effectively. But as you know, if you watch a lot of basketball and a lot of Luka specifically, elite offense is always going to be elite defense, and that's the case with him. And he kind of cooked them when they played on March 1st, and it didn't end up mattering. The Celtics still won that game by almost 30 points, but Luka still got his. I think the key is going to be slowing down Kyrie. And obviously it's going to be a hostile environment that Kyrie is walking into tonight. There's no doubt about it. It's going to be turned up to a finals level, even worse than when he's typically here, and he always gets booed regardless. But if you go back to that Oklahoma City series, I think they laid out a pretty good blueprint for how to slow down Kyrie. And to me, the Celtics can follow that pretty well. Like I mentioned with the defensive backcourt, I think they can handle him okay. And then they're also going to be really intentional about attacking those guys on the other end, which Minnesota really didn't do a whole lot of. So that maybe the best defense is going to be a good offense, trying to slow those guys down.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Drew, because Boston has run quite a bit of stuff where, Derek White is a screener. So if Kyrie's trying to hide on Derek White, and, I doubt Luka's going to be on Tatum, but he's probably going to be on Tatum or Brown, those two guys can run plenty of pick and roll and, get those two guys in an action, make them work. How much of that, though, is a risk to take, pick those matchups versus just run what the Celtics want to run offensively, although I guess if they're used to it, maybe it's not that much of a diversion in the first place.
Well, that's sort of been the argument all year is the Celtics are pretty brutal about hunting mismatches. They are relentless, and especially with Porzingis, so getting him back will help them do that. But the flip side of that is when you run a pick and roll and get Porzingis matched up against a guy who's a foot shorter than he is, you want him to abuse that mismatch, but you also don't want to get out of the flow of your offense. When they're at their best, they're running and they're playing at a fast pace and they're getting it across half court 3 seconds in. That was when they were at their best against Indiana, a team that you would think you might want to slow the game down against, but actually the Celtics, when it got up and down, they were the better team in that situation. So that's the key question. But I think you have to balance how much can we try to put fouls on Luka and Kyrie and try to tire them out on that side versus getting the Celtics out of their own flow. That's why Joe Mazzulla gets paid the big bucks and gets the big scrutiny.
Drew Carter, play-by-play for the Boston Celtics, with us here on the Hoffman Show for another minute or two. You mentioned the friendly Boston welcome that Kyrie is going to get tonight. And in the past, he has played into that, including flipping off the crowd a couple years ago and stamping on the mascot at center court and all those things. Although it seems like Kyrie this year has been a lot more zen, if you will. Like, he has not given into a lot of that stuff, and he even wrote the other day about, or mentioned the other day about, like, he's moved on. He's finally at peace with everything that happened. And I would assume, Drew, he's probably going to try to tune that stuff out. Do you think he can actually do it, though, with as intense as that environment is going to be?
That's going to be the question. He did an okay – and by the way, I think the people honking you heard in the background earlier, I don't know if Kyrie drove by or walked by, that feels like they're taking out their anger about him being back here.
Okay.
There's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of vitriol. And look, I give him credit. They booed him a lot a couple months ago, and he seemed to handle it okay. He didn't play all that well. I don't know how he's going to handle it this time. And I guess I'm in sort of believe it when I see it, when the going gets tough mode for him. And by that I mean I don't really buy into the whole Kyrie is a totally reformed guy. I still think the Celtics fans might be able to get to him a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see. But I will tell you that this fan base has more animosity toward him than any other player in the NBA right now, and it's going to be brutal for him coming in. I would just implore Celtics fans to save their hostility for Kyrie. Don't direct it at Luka, because that seems to get him going, and I really don't want that to happen.
Who's crying now? Blankety blank. Last thing for you, sir. I won't make you make a prediction because you're a play-by-play man, and play-by-play people don't make predictions. But I will ask you this: it's weird because Tatum and Brown are essentially entering their primes now, based off of their age and what we know an NBA prime to be. But because they have been together so long and because they have won so much, it does feel that there are some people putting like existential type of expectations on this series. You win, you get to keep this thing going. You don't, there's going to be some kind of blow up of the team after, because as you said, this team is perfectly built. If you can't do it with this, how could you possibly do it? In reality, with where Brad Stevens and the front office are, do you think that there is that like existential end potentially if they lose this series, or no matter what, win or lose, are they hoping this is the first of, or I guess the second of what they will be many finals appearances, even if it has a couple of losses on the resume along the way?
So I'm sort of two minds about this, and I'm going to get to the end point eventually, but I might have to kind of meander to get there. On the one hand,
Drew, all that would be doing is mirroring one of the worst questions I've ever asked a guest. Good God, I meandered a lot. So take your time. By all means, go ahead.
So on one hand, I think there's no way that those two guys get broken up with all the success they've had. And kind of how I look at the NBA and contending for a long time is all you can really ask for is a chance. And for the last half decade, the Celtics have had about as good a chance as anybody to win the NBA championship. I think that's fair to say. I mean, they've been in the Eastern Conference Finals 6 of the last 8 years. Most of that has been with these two guys together. And now they just put together one of the most dominant seasons in franchise history and really NBA history, and they've got a great chance to win it all. Now, we're talking, even though it is a 7-game series and it's not a one-off, we're talking about a sport where, there's a lot of volatility. Like the Celtics lost to the Heat in 7 last year. I would say mostly because Miami shot 43% from 3 and Boston shot 30%. And Caleb Martin turned into Ray Allen in NBA Jam and was on fire for the entire series. Like, you don't expect that to happen, and that's not a reason to change everything. Flip side of that is Wyc Grousbeck, the Celtics owner, has talked multiple times this year about how during the second half against Miami in that Game 7, when it was becoming clear the Celtics were going to lose, he made the decision that we're not bringing the same team back. And he went to Brad Stevens and he went to Mike Zarin and the entire front office and said, I don't know what it is. That's why I pay you guys. We have to change something. And obviously they changed a lot. And they made, 2 of the best moves of the offseason, bringing in Holiday and Porzingis, and that's why Brad wins Executive of the Year. So keeping that in mind, no matter what you think or feel about those two guys, Wyc Grousbeck and the ownership have proven that they're going to be super aggressive. And are they going to look around and say, do we want to pay Jaylen Brown $60 million a year if the best possible team assembled around him and Tatum doesn't win a championship? That I'm not sure about. But to me, all you can ask for is a chance. And those two guys together in the modern NBA give you a chance to, A, build a pretty much perfect roster around them, and B, compete for championships every year, which is what I expect them to do for the next 5 years.
Is a very good and really not all that meandering answer. Drew Carter, that's why they pay him to talk on television. You can watch him on SportsCenter on ESPN, and he is making the rounds, doing all the away games for the Boston Celtics on television, which is why the last time I saw him was here in D.C. Now, do you know next year what your Celtics schedule will be? Like with Gorman stepping aside, the legend riding off into the sunset. Are you full-time Celtics man next year? What's your deal, man?
Yes, sir. Doing all the Celtics games minus the national exclusives we lose, which is a bunch because everybody wants to watch the Celtics
because they're good.
Yeah, so,
must be nice.
Yep. I'll be doing all those games. So very excited and hope to be here for a long time.
Yeah, congratulations, pal. If you have like half the career Gorman had, you can basically retire because he did it forever.
Yeah, 43 years. But I tell Mike all the time, I'm coming for you, man. I'm going for 44, which, Craig, as you know,
that would be
holds
appropriate.
a special place in every Syracuse alum's heart. So 44 is the goal.
That is true. Well, you're certainly starting young enough, you whippersnapper. Drew Carter, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Great to talk to you, pal. Enjoy the game, and I hope that you peruse the rest of the streets of Boston safely without too many people honking at you.
Craig, thank you, man. I hope the Mystics get that win tonight.
Yeah, let's go. All right, bringing it full circle. Drew Carter, everybody, with us on the Hoffman Show. See you, buddy. When we get back, quick initial thoughts on the NBA Finals from the Boston side. Ant and I will chime in, and then Meghan McPeak joins us on set. Speaking of great play-by-play announcers, Meghan McPeak, who will be calling games not only for Monumental for the Mystics, but you will now hear those calls here on the Team 980 as well. She's on set with us at 5 p.m. the Hoffman Show. We're on the
hold on.
team.
My bad.
We're on the Hoffman Show. It is the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Meghan McPeak joins us live on set here at Capital One Arena ahead of Mystic Sky tonight coming up at 5 p.m. Right now, Anthony, we have about, 3.5, 4 minutes, and you have 3 burning questions for me for the NBA Finals. So let's see how efficiently we can do this. We will do more on the Finals, obviously, later on in the show.
Yes, sir. I do have a couple of questions for you. And the first, my guy, is going to be who has the most pressure on them to perform in the finals on both teams? Who would you say?
On both teams. I think it's Tatum and Kyrie. Although there's tempting to say just Tatum and Luka because they're the best players, and that's kind of how this works, right? I think Tatum, though, it's more it's bigger because this is a guy with a legacy on the line in a major, major way, right? He's been a top 10 player in the league, arguably top 5 for a couple of years now. And if you legitimately want to be that dude, eventually you have to win a championship. He's in a title chasing, what's my long-term legacy type of way. And, unless you want to be, oh, yeah, he was really great, but he never won the big one, you eventually got to win it. And not that this is inherently going to be his last chance, but I think this is a big opportunity for him. And it's also an opportunity, frankly, I hate that when it comes to, most important. I mean, let me put it this way. Most important, obviously, it's those two because they're the two best players. So from a purely basketball standpoint, it's not actually that interesting because the most pressure is always on the best player. From a narrative standpoint, he has an opportunity to shut a lot of people up who have been oh, you haven't actually been that good this year. Luka, I think because he's younger, maybe when we talk about narrative, and this is also his first finals, if he were to come up smaller, it's oh, well, he can be better in the future. He'll be back, whatever. Whereas Kyrie, if he bombs out, it's hey, you left Boston, you want to do your own thing. You're saying you're at peace now. Let's see you do it, and especially if he plays poorly on the road, I think the people will prescribe it to the pressure playing in Boston. So I'd say those two are my answers.
All right, I got you, my guy. I would lean Tatum, though, in general,
I agree with
the
you.
Most pressure, though.
Yeah, Tatum's the 1 seed for sure.
Yeah. All right, who would you say is the X factor for both teams?
For both teams. The X factor for Boston's Porzingis. If Porzingis is an all-NBA level player, I don't think Dallas has a shot. With all due respect, Luka's the best player in the series. Kyrie's phenomenal. They're a beautifully built basketball team that they absolutely are legit credible title contenders. If Porzingis is awesome, presuming that Tatum and Brown are good, he breaks everything. His three-point shooting pulls Gafford and Lively away from the rim. He can just kill you on mismatches. He is a legitimate, can get you 40 in a game kind of guy. And when he's the third guy that can get you 40, if he's awesome, that is a game changer. X factor, I think the X factor for Dallas is the same guy that's been the X factor for them, which is P.J. Washington. Gaff and Lively, they're gonna rim run. They're gonna do that. They're gonna protect the rim on defense as best they can. But if they get pulled away by Porzingis, we'll see. But in Oklahoma City, they had a good strategy, and then P.J. Washington shot 47% from 3, and it ruined the whole strategy. So if he hits a ton of shots, that kind of means you have to guard him, and that means that Luka and Kyrie have more one-on-one situations. And as good as the defensive players on the Celtics are, good freaking luck with that. So I think P.J. Washington is the guy.
I love P.J. Washington. He definitely went from averaging 18 to 11 in the Western Conference Finals, so definitely something to look out for. And last thing, who would you say has the coaching advantage in this series?
I appreciate Drew's perspective. We just had Drew Carter on, if you're just tuning in, play-by-play man for the Celtics. And he talked a lot about how Mazzulla has really grown, but I do think Kidd's probably the better coach at this stage. And, some of the assistants on that Dallas bench, they way strengthened Boston's bench. That was part of the problem last year is they pulled Mazzulla to be the head guy and didn't have time to hire a staff. So you had this young head coach that didn't have the support that a young coach needs. This year he's got it. But I think Dallas has a good head coach. I think they have a good staff. I think Kidd's been in these situations before. For Mazzulla, I feel like there's been times where some of this pressure has been a lot for him. And I do wonder if there's a situation where whether he needs to call timeout or needs to drop a good play or needs to control or manage a game, and it's too much. So I'll put it this way: I'm more confident in Kidd, although I think Mazzulla is a very good coach. We'll do more on the NBA Finals coming up in the next hour. Also, still the Lakers Dan Hurley story. Definitely want to get into that. I kind of just want to replay Russell and Linnell screaming at each other. No, I don't want to do that. I do want to react to some of what they said, though, which I think is interesting, this existential conversation about college sports. So we'll do that coming up in the 6 p.m. hour. Might also hit Never Read the Comments today. We got a lot flowing. Matt Turner, U.S. men's national team, soccer, goalkeeper, joins us at 5:30. But Meghan McPeak is on set with us next. On the heels of today's big announcement, Mystics, we are now the flagship home for the broadcast. So you heard Meghan and Christy Winter-Scott nightly here on the Team 980 when the Mystics are playing. Meghan joins me on set next. Hour number 2 of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. We are broadcasting live from Capital One Arena ahead of Mystics Sky tonight, which you can hear right here on the Team 980. And Anthony, we can skip the fancy imaging. Not my beat. Today is someone whose beat it is to call the action, and you'll hear her and Chrissy Winterscott tonight. Meghan McPeak with me here on set. Hey, friend.
Hey, friend. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited that we finally get back to some actual basketball tonight. What a week it's been.
You mean we haven't been talking basketball all week?
I mean, I try, and then it's like, oh, another terrible thing happened. But we're going to skip all that. We're going to get to the actual basketball, which obviously it has not been the start of the season that the Mystics were hoping for. On media day, talking to players and coaches, everyone knows, like, this is the start of a rebuild. This is a long process. Then you have Slim get hurt. Shakira is obviously working back from the injury. For the Mystics to kind of get where they are capable of, because they have been so competitive in these games,
right,
to finish it off, what's the final step, do you think, that when Eric is talking about it, when the players talk about it, when you and Christy are watching it, to just get that last little bit across the finish line?
I think it's just putting it together for a full 40 minutes. Like, that's where you start to see a little bit of complacency, is they'll have a great first quarter and a great fourth quarter, but it's the second and third quarter that sometimes they stumble with, or they'll have a great start to a quarter and then, kind of stumble to finish it. So I think it's just putting together that full 40-minute game and start to finish and competing at the highest level for the 40 minutes. And you look at what they've been able to do. You take away the Seattle game, and you take away the most recent Liberty game, because it was a bigger differential in the final score than what we had seen in the opener. And obviously no Slim and no Shakira in that game as well. Well, Shakira was in that game, excuse me. But then you look at this Connecticut game most recently. If you take away those 3 games, you're looking at games where the Mystics are in a 1 or 2 possession game down the stretch. They've been in the most clutch moment games all season. So it's like you're right there. And as a former competitor, as a fan of basketball, watching it happen, it's just like, how do you get that to get over the hump? What do you need to get over the hump? And quite frankly, you're also then looking at a situation where you take away Slim and you take away Shakira. A lot of the scoring load and the defensive load then falls on the shoulders, of Ariel Atkins. And you don't have that ability to kind of have that outlet, that release valve that you could have with a Slim, you could have with a Shakira. So you put all that all that pressure on her shoulders. And don't get me wrong, she can do it. Right. But to try and do it night after night, eventually you get tired. You do get tired. These are professional athletes, yes. But there is fatigue. You're an athlete from a fitness standpoint. Yeah. And there is fatigue. It can happen. So I think you're also running into that, too, because they're playing such heavy minutes.
I think the other thing, too, and I've been talking to people around the Wizards about this with, like, Kyle, for instance, right? Because Kyle, after the season, was like, oh, I don't feel like I was fit enough to be a star player. Like, I was fit for an NBA player, but I didn't realize the extra load it takes to be that star. And actually, now that I think of it, I talked to A about this in our interview at Media Day, is the decision-making fatigue late in games. And I think that's something with this team without Slim specifically. And, like, obviously they run some offense through Shakira, but those late-game situations as a guard where you have to make the decision. Like, if Shakira gets the ball, it's because we want Shakira to score the basketball. Right. At that point, she's getting it down on the block. But for Ariel to just be like, I guess I got to make all the decisions, to hit the percentage, the batting average you need to on those decisions correctly is really hard. And this is the first time she's ever done it. And I think that's part of the challenge for her and, this growth for the Mystics over the next couple of years is, okay, this is the year where we figure out just how, from an evaluation standpoint, Mike's trying to figure out how good is Ariel in that role. And Ariel is probably, as we're only 9 games into the season, figuring out how good am I in this role to make that many decisions. It's hard.
Yes. And the crazy thing about this is, let's not hit the panic button. It's been 9 games. That's the other thing you have to remember and remind yourself as you're watching is it's only been 9 games. Yes, it's only a 40-game season. It seems like a short season because you've got 40 games. It's, truncated with the All-Star and Olympic break. So that first part of the season is a sprint to game 25, game 26, depending on your schedule. And then after the Olympic break, there's that 15, 16 game sprint, depending on what your schedule looks like. So as much as you want to say, well, let's panic, you also don't want to panic from a standpoint of you need to be calm and relax in the moment within the team to be able to ride the ship and ride the storm. Because if you start to panic, then, anything can happen. Another injury could happen. You could then start to not execute properly. And that's an area, too, where you look at every game, they continue to execute and increase the way that they execute, how they execute, the efficiency with which they execute. I go back to that Connecticut game again, too, Craig, and I look at the shot selection. A lot of the shots that they had in that game, fantastic looks, great looks, the best looks that you want to try and get. The difference, they just were not falling. And sometimes it can be that simple in a loss of, we were getting great looks. We got open threes. We got open layups. We got, open mid-range opportunities. We got the rotation defensively that we wanted to get them in. The shot was there. It just didn't fall. And sometimes that's the way the basketball bounces. And I think, unfortunately, it's how it's been going right now for the Mystics. But it's not like they can't figure it out and they can't right the ship and get back on track. It's only game 9. Like, that's the wild thing about it. It's a blessing and a curse because it's only game 9, so, let's not hit the panic button. But then again, it's also it's only game 9 of a 40-game season, and we've got to figure it out quickly.
For sure. Meghan McPeak is with us, of course, play-by-play voice of the Mystics here on your new radio home for the Mystics, the Team 980. It's something that we've talked about, I think, nationally a lot. Actually, the more salient conversation with Indiana when we talk about, Clark struggles and that team struggles. It's well, yeah, they played 11 games, this incredibly compressed thing. The Mystics are right behind them. Yeah, and I don't think it's coincidence.
The Fever, the Mystics, and the Liberty have played the top 3 most games to start the season.
And the Liberty have the benefit of continuity coming off of last season. They're also extremely talented. This is not to say these teams are actually
and
talented.
All healthy.
Right. And so, but with those two teams, particularly newer, younger teams trying to be cohesive, if you had, say, the Aces schedule where they've been able to practice is helpful, and that's
such a wild concept.
I know. So, how has Eric addressed trying to do this on the fly, especially when night to night? For instance, with Shakira, they're kind of evaluating certain things as they go with her and the maintenance plan for her hip. You might not exactly know who you're going to have beyond the natural. You never know because it's basketball and people get hurt.
Right. I think you look at kind of what they're trying to do. They're making the most of what they can with the schedule that's been given to them. They can't control it. That's one of the things outside of what the other team is going to do. Yeah, you can have a scouting report. You can prepare for it all you want. There's 3 things in basketball you can't prepare for and you can't control. What the opponent is going to actually do, what the officials are going to call, and injuries.
We've been talking a lot about the officials on this show the last couple of days.
And
I won't get you in trouble.
That's the only time I'll mention it.
Yeah, you just never know.
Of all people, I'm the one that can get in trouble and not get fined for it. But you look at those 3 components, and the schedule is another area where you can't control that. And this is the hand you've been dealt, and you figure it out as you go. And what they've been trying to do is practice when you can, whether it's at home or on the road, and as well to utilize the time you have at shoot-around, whether that's making sure you're getting your treatment, you're getting in your lifts and that type of thing, and then going over what, the scouting report is. Watching a lot of film. They're all film buffs and making sure they're watching film, not just on what the opponent is doing as a group, but as well to individually what their defensive matchup could be and what have you. So trying to take advantage of all the things you would naturally do to prepare for an opponent and a game, they're doing it all the time without the ability to actually have a full true practice. Monday was the first time they had been able to actually hold a real practice in probably 2 weeks, I would think. And obviously you play Tuesday, you play today, and you play tomorrow. So yesterday was also get back after playing on Tuesday. You get back late, depending on, when you land, whether it's midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, depending on, weather and flying and all that jazz. And then you've got to prepare immediately, not just for one, but you've got to prepare for 2 teams because you're on a back-to-back, and you can only do so much in a shoot-around the day of the game tomorrow against Indiana. But right now they're worried about Chicago and what they're going to do, but you just quite simply have to deal with the hand you're dealt, and I think Eric and his coaching staff and the players are doing the best they can with what they have.
I have been very impressed with Shakira. Obviously, the injury has meant she's missed some games, so she continues to manage that coming back, and that's smart because Shakira Austin is the ultimate long-term investment for the Washington Mystics right now as an organization. But are you at all surprised at like the pop she has, the athleticism she has coming off the injury that she did this quickly in the season?
In all honesty, from a standpoint of someone who dealt with an Achilles and calf rupture in retirement, washed up as an athlete, I am very impressed with how quickly she was able to help.
To be young.
Right? I know, right?
Dealing with it in retirement is one thing. When you're 23 years old, she's fine.
It's
she's
a whole
fine.
different thing. But, I mean, you look at how she has recovered from it and continue, because, yes, she recovered to the point where she was healthy enough and the doctors cleared her and she felt good to play. But you're also then still seeing the recovery as it continues on, because it's not just like, oh, I'm recovered, I can play, I was cleared. It's going to continue. That recovery is going to continue, which is why you see them manage her minutes from a game-to-game standpoint as well too. But I was thoroughly and very happily impressed with how quickly she was able to deal with the injury, have the surgery, rehab, get ready, and put herself in a position to be back on the floor for opening night for the Washington Mystics. And not just do that, but as well to be impactful. Because that's the other thing. You can be healthy and be ready, but are you also making sure that you're impactful, that you're having that pop that you had, prior to the injury, that you're impacting the game the way you want to impact the game, the way the team needs you to impact the game as well too. And I think you look at it from a defensive standpoint especially, and the way that she has been such a rim protector for this organization since she was drafted. You saw that kind of on opening night against the New York Liberty, and how it looked like Shakira was Shakira again, and almost like she had kind of an extra pep in her step. I think last year with the injury, she was on course, as Christy and I talk about all the time, for potentially getting most improved player of the league. And then the injury happened. So I think she also partially wants to prove that, like, I can get back to who I was and even be more impactful for my team.
Last thing, just kind of generally I want to talk about, then we'll get quickly into the game tonight against the Sky and that matchup. But Julie Van Loo has been kind of this revelation where it's like, oh, wow, she's playing a lot more. I hope she's ready for it. Oh, dang, like this, she can ball, she's what, a 31-year-old rookie,
Yep.
right? Have the age right? 31-year-old rookies don't come into a league and be good, because if you were supposed to be this good, you would have been in the league a long time ago, unless you're Julie Van Loo.
Right.
What's it like? Was there a moment maybe in a practice or early in a game you're like, oh, look at what we got here?
I would say probably like first day or so of training camp. And I immediately noticed the chemistry that her and Maisha Hines-Allen had. Obviously, they played together in the WNBA offseason in Turkey. And that was kind of their 1-2 punch, a very successful season for the two of them and their team as well, too. So when I started to see that chemistry right off the bat, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then she makes passes that I go back to, like, it's the Europe. You can tell she's a European-style basketball player. But the way she specifically plays reminds me of a Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, the way they stuck to the way they wanted to play and how they could be impactful in how they play the game of basketball. She's not trying to be slim. She's not trying to be Chelsea Gray. She's not trying to be Skylar Diggins-Smith. She's being Julie Van Loo. And I think that is how she has been able to seamlessly kind of transition into the starting role in place of Slim right now, and not have a huge drop off in like deer in the headlights kind of situation, because that could have easily happened. You're a rookie in the league, you're trying to figure out the style of the WNBA, you're adjusting to new rules and how officials call the game as well too. And you're also adjusting to teammates and new teammates, and making sure you're understanding the verbiage and the terminology. So all of these things are getting fired at her, but that also allows you to see how intelligent she is as a basketball player, and why being a 31-year-old rookie is to her benefit, because she's able to pick things up so quickly and execute exactly what she wants to do. But the way she plays is so perfect for her. And you can tell that she can catch people on their heels, because she's sneaky quick, but she plays within her own methodical speed of like, she can speed you up, but you don't realize you're getting sped up until, she's doing that one hand, serve you at the cup kind of silver platter finish. Or, she had in the game against Connecticut, she had that Rajon Rondo rock the baby kind of fake pass and then finish, in the paint. So I think it's so great, and it's not surprising because Mike Thibault, who's the GM, loves to find intricate, unique talents that play the game the right way, can play different positions, different styles, within different schematics and what have you. It's another reason why he wanted to get Emma Meesum in here when he did, and why they had such great success. And Emma and Julia are also very good friends, playing for the Belgian national team together, and had a lot of conversations once she had told Emma that she was going to be coming over here, 1, to play in the W, but 2, playing for the Mystics.
That's cool. That's great insight. Meghan McPeak with us for another few minutes here on the Hoffman Show. We're live at Capital One Arena ahead of Mystics and Sky tonight, and you can hear that game called by Megan and Christy on Monumental Sports Network, and the simulcast with us here on the Team 980. Obviously, the headliner for Chicago is Angel. The big reason why this game is here is because of her popularity, but her game has translated to the W in a way that I think has been a pleasant surprise for a lot of folks, because, for all the talk of like the physicality and stuff of the conversation of the week and how out of control that's gotten, like Angel was able to physically dominate in college because she is a special, special athlete. How surprised are you from a basketball sense that she's been able to continue that and specifically rebound at the high level she has so far as a rookie?
In all honesty, I would even kind of twofold that in their 3rd overall pick in Camila Cardoso as well, too. Because her game, although it's only, a very early 2-game sample size because of her injury that she suffered very early in training camp, which kind of, stuck her where she was and not being able to play right off the bat, they've both been able to translate because they don't try to play outside of who they are and what they can do to impact the game. Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso are 2 of the best rebounding bigs in college basketball. They were when they played at LSU and South Carolina, respectfully. They're great offensive rebounders as well, too. I go back to Chicago's last game, and the way that Angel crashed the offensive glass was phenomenal. She had more offensive rebounds than defensive rebounds. Like, that tells you something.
Insane.
It's not only like, oh, yeah, I want the rebound because I want to get a bucket, but I'm getting another possession for my team as well, too. So the way that they played in college contrasts to each other as well. Camilla's very a back to the basket, prototypical old school kind of big, but can stretch the floor just a little bit with, like an 8-foot jump
ask
shot.
Tennessee. All she had to do was do it
or,
once.
Once in a blue moon, hit a 26-foot shot. But then Angel also has the ability to utilize her athleticism, kind of take you off the dribble, get to the hoop, and not necessarily play outside of that 3-point line. She really sticks to, kind of reminds me of, and let me preface it by saying this, I'm not saying they're the exact same player. I'm saying the style reminds me, let me be clear, of the way A'ja Wilson played when she first got into the league, where how she was use my athleticism, use my power, get to the hoop, get contact, and get to the free throw line. Angel kind of reminds me in that sense of the way that she wants to get to the hoop, get to the hoop, get to the hoop.
There's a fearlessness to that as well.
Yes, and a reckless abandonment, if you will, kind of vibe as well, too. So I like that. And then, that's up to Teresa Weatherspoon, head coach of the Sky, and her staff to then work player development-wise on making Angel a more rounded player, because right now that outside jump shot, it's there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
Like, it was the same thing with A'ja Wilson, as you know. Like, the jump shot was there when she was in college. She would take it. She could hit it. But it's the efficiency and the consistency with which it falls that needs to be worked on. And, it's going to be very exciting for not just women's basketball fans, but hoop heads, period. Because basketball is basketball, game recognizes game. To watch this rookie class, I would say even the last 2 rookie classes, and the future of women's basketball.
I'd say the next 2, too.
Meshing and gelling with the vets that are in the W right now. I think it's going to be a really cool kind of synergy that you start to see of, how the torch and the fandom begins to be passed from vets to sophomores and what have you, and rookies and so on. I'm just glad that I get to be along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure. So let's end there. And I don't want to necessarily put this week aside, because this week has been one of the craziest narrative whatever weeks that we've ever seen in this sport. But generally speaking, taking a much wider view of the last 2 years and the fact that we're here. We're not doing this at ESA. We're doing this at Capital One. Tomorrow night, obviously, already sold out with Clark and the Fever coming to town. Like, you've been in this sport as a player, as a broadcaster. Like, what does this mean to you? I have the radio deal today. It's just the growth of it all to be here, this moment, from your, very good courtside seat. What's this mean to you?
I think it's wild and awesome that I get to be a part of this. Like, I look back and think of like Little Meg and what she couldn't get to, and that was WNBA games. The closest teams to where I grew up was the Detroit Chalk, which was like a 4.5 hour drive, or the New York Liberty, which was like an 8-9 hour drive.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of little girls who have the ability to get here, get to games, see these women. And if you can't get to a W game, getting to college women's basketball games, seeing themselves in these women. You mentioned, obviously, the radio partnership today that was announced with 980. Now games will be simulcast on the radio. Anybody who's going to listen, I'm going to do my best to go back to my radio roots and kind of describe things a little bit more intricate than I normally would with it just being on television. But as well, too, I say that, and I remember, well, not everybody can watch the television. Some people might have the game on just to hear it. So now I get to go back to my radio roots and utilize that training and that experience. I also think of the fact of Monumental Sports Network looking last year and making the decision to do something different and take a step forward in promoting these games and doing the first pre- and post-game show for a team, and still the only one that does it for the consistency of the entire season and schedule. Some teams are starting to implement it here and there, but not for every game. I look at the fact that they just announced a partnership with Robinhood, who wanted to be a sponsor on the jerseys. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
You're starting to see more eyeballs on the game, which wasn't there when I played, wasn't there for the people who put us in this position. You go back to the inception, 1997, they didn't have the ability to have what these women have. And it's because of those women, those players, the Cheryl Swoops, the Tina Thompsons, Kim Perot's, them that set the tone. Teresa Weatherspoon, who played and is now giving back. Christy Sides, who was an assistant coach and has helped develop people. Like, it's because of them that have pushed the game to where it is. They walked so these players could run. And to think of the eyeballs that are now also on it, it's investment. It's, making sure you're putting your money where your mouth is. Don't just talk about the game. Don't just talk about what's going on. Come to a game, get to a game, bring a friend, bring a neighbor, bring a young girl who might want to aspire to be these women. Put her in a position to see what she can be, because it's not just the people on the floor as well, too, and the athletes. It's the coaches. It's the team staff that also can be something that someone may not see if they don't get to actually see it in person. So it's really and truly 97 to probably 2004, that generation of the WNBA did everything to put the WNBA, in my opinion, in a position to be where it is right now.
Yeah, Meghan McPeak, you see her tonight, Monumental Sports Network, with Christy Winter-Scott. And, of course, as she said, you'll hear her right here on the Team 980 as well. Thanks for coming by, my friend. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
When we get back, how about this for a next segment? Ever been followed on a radio show by U.S. men's national team goalkeeper Matt Turner?
I have not.
Never done that one before, but Matt Turner's calling in next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. This weekend at Commanders Field, still getting used to calling it Commanders Field. Commanders Field in Landover. The U.S. men's national soccer team will face Colombia, and we are joined now by the starting goalkeeper for that squad. It is Matt Turner. Matt, Craig Hoffman here in D.C. Welcome to town. How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. We're really excited to be here in the nation's capital.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys. Should be a great crowd on Saturday. This is obviously a friendly, as you well know, but for the audience, friendly ahead of the Copa America tournament that starts later this month. Matt, what are these friendlies like for you as you prepare? Obviously, a great Colombian side. You always want to win the game. You get out there, the whistle blows. It's competition. But you know that this big, giant tournament is on the horizon less than a month away.
Yeah, I would never talk down a friendly, especially an opportunity to play against, one of the teams that's going to compete for the same trophy that we're looking to compete for. So Colombia is a really good side. I think they're unbeaten in their last 21, and we haven't beat them in our last 7 opportunities when we went head to head. So, it's a difficult game. It's a good test for us, and obviously after Colombia we play Brazil, and yeah, we know for us, it's the United States, and we're always going to get everyone's best shot because it feels like sometimes that the rest of the world doesn't want to see the U.S. succeed in this sport. So for us, we have to bring our A game every time we step out onto the pitch, and again, we're not going to get too hung up on the results of the friendlies, but we want to, put in good performances that can give us some momentum heading into the Copa.
Obviously, it's been a interesting couple of years here for the men's national team with the World Cup, and then you have this period where it's like, okay, who's going to be the next coach? And then turns out it's the same guy in Greg. How quickly were you all able to pick up in the camps that you've had since Greg was back in charge full time? Like, how much has changed? Obviously, you didn't get the result you want in the World Cup, so there's going to be natural changes. Also, personnel evolves. It's not a shot at anybody, just the natural way that sports goes. How much has changed versus kind of how much is adding on to what you guys were building going into Qatar at this point a couple years ago?
Yeah, I'd say not a lot changed in terms of how camps are run and the way we played. I think even when they were still trying to, go through the hiring process, the rules of camp were the same. The way we played in games was the exact same. And so, for us, it was, Greg slotting back in was honestly, it was seamless. And, so for us, it's just about adding more experience. And I think since the World Cup, guys have gotten that. Whether it be all of us together, we've had more camps where we've been all together, which has been really nice because you didn't have like that whole COVID build up to a major tournament. But also in their club situations around Europe and in MLS and whenever it is, guys have found, places where they're playing more consistently for the most part and challenging themselves in different ways and growing on and off the pitch. And I know I wasn't the same person, when I was 21 that I am now. And I think, even from 23 to 25, I changed a lot. And you'll see a lot of these young players growing up right before our eyes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Matt, I'm 34 now, and let me tell you, when you get to be even in your 30s, you're like, dang, I can't believe how young I was when I was 20, whatever. It's wild at the stage of the life that not just you, but so many of your teammates are in, how that growth happens, and especially so many of you in foreign countries playing and the experiences you get. And I'm also curious, while this is not necessarily your personal case, you're now at Nottingham Forest, you've been at Arsenal the past couple of years, and that's been just you in terms of U.S. player at those clubs. But you have these pairings of a bunch of different guys, your teammates, that are kind of in duos at their clubs, whether it's in Italy, Germany, et cetera. Do you see that chemistry carry over from club to country with those specific guys, especially you think of like Eunice and Christian playing together and they actually genuinely play off of each other on the pitch? Do you see that happen when you guys get together as Team USA?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that stuff's really cool. I don't think it's extremely common. I mean, it's pretty rare for us as Americans to say that we have two two players at two of the biggest clubs in the world, at Juventus and AC Milan, playing together. It's crazy to think about. You know, I had 6 months with Gio at Nottingham Forest, and I can speak to that experience. It was amazing for me to be able to talk to Gio every day, watch him train, see his habits, and kind of learn a little bit more about him and how I can help make him better and how he challenged me for me to be better. And, you know, as much as we were focused on everything going on at Forest at the time, you know, being in a relegation battle was tough. There wasn't a day that we went, I don't think, we didn't talk about, you know, U.S. men's national team stuff as well. So we went through those experiences at Forest together, and we were focused, and it was really great for us. But at the same time, we always got to, you know, talk a little bit about the U.S. stuff, and that was really nice because you had a little slice of home away from home.
Matt Turner, goalkeeper, U.S. men's national team, with us here on the Hoffman Show. And you mentioned, you know, it was a wild year for you guys at Nottingham Forest. For you personally, you know, a lot of ups and downs there. Like when you get out of it and you have the chance to maybe look back, I know you're coming right into this camp, but do you take a moment to try to decompress and kind of process that season? Is that something you hope to do, or are you just all eyes forward at this point on this U.S. camp in Copa America, and is that how it's been since you left England a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, I think I took this time I needed to take to process everything. Like you said, it was an up and down season for me. Some really, really awesome highs and some, you know, horrible lows. So it was a challenging season. You know, all I can take pride in from that is that we stayed up, and at the end of the day, I know that I worked really hard, and I tried to put my best foot forward every single time, you know, I stepped out onto the pitch. And so for me, there's pride to be had in that. And, you know, I can put that chapter to bed. I can focus completely now on the summer and what's ahead, because, you know, this business moves really, really fast. And if you get caught up thinking too much about the past, you know, the present especially will fly right by you, and then you'll miss your opportunities in the future. So you have to take the lessons that you can take, the positives, as much as you can. It's important to take positives from negative moments. And yeah, just keep building, keep growing. And then when I have the chances now to put on the national team crest, give the best performances that I can so I can keep getting called in.
Let's wrap up with kind of that thought, Matt. I'm so curious you got to now train at the highest level. You were with Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, like you're in the Premier League. It doesn't get better than that. There are obviously other great leagues that are kind of on that level, whether it's in Spain, Italy, a couple more that you could certainly mention. But what is it that you take from the experiences the last couple of years in the Premier League, getting that level of coaching that you bring back with you wherever your next stop is, and certainly in the immediacy into this U.S. camp and Copa America this summer?
Yeah, I think the game is just fast. The game is ever changing, and it's a weird business. I feel like in soccer more than, especially over in England compared to a lot of other places, there's a lot of changes made. There's a lot of turnover, and so sometimes you just have to stay steadfast and true to yourself. And I think the biggest lesson I took was I tried to change too much about myself when I first got to Nottingham and changed the way I played, and I wasn't exactly being me all the time. And I found that really difficult. And now, you know, I've learned that lesson, and I'm still only 29, even though I'll be 30 in about 18 days. So I'm almost 30. And it was an important, really valuable lesson for me to learn. So as much as you have tactics and things that you want to achieve in games, I think the most important thing is to stay true to yourself and to what got you to, you know, the moment that you're in. And yeah, that's definitely the thing that I take with me in my future at Nottingham Forest, and definitely with the national team.
Matt Turner with us. Amen to that. Happy early birthday, Matt. Enjoy Commanders Field this weekend, and best of luck not only in the friendlies, but obviously in Copa America when that gets started on June 23rd. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We'll see you Saturday.
Absolutely. That is Matt Turner, everybody, the goalkeeper for your U.S. men's national soccer team, with us here on the Hoffman Show. What a day. What a day. We're live at Capital One Arena ahead of Mystic Sky tonight. We've talked about that with Meghan McPeak. We talked NBA Finals. We've talked to Matt Turner. And the show's only half over. So what does the second half have in store? I don't know. We've kind of left the rundown blank because we didn't know what was going to happen. We're definitely going to talk some more NBA Finals. We're definitely getting into Mystic Sky and the matchup tonight. There's plenty to talk about, so stay with us here on the Team 980.
Here's
We are live at Capital One Arena. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Tonight here on the Team 980, the first ever Mystics radio broadcast, a simulcast of Meghan McPeak and Christy Winter-Scott from Monumental Sports Network. Meghan stopped by the set just a little bit ago. Great chatting with her at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. If you want to rewind and check out our conversation about the state of the Mystics and obviously how they get on the winning track. It's 9 games in. They have not won one yet. They have been real close in a bunch. How do they break through? And I think they can against the Chicago team tonight. We will talk about that a little more later, Anthony. But right now, I actually just want to set the scene a little bit here because we did a number of broadcasts here during the season for the Wizards, and I couldn't tell you what time the doors opened during the season for the Wizards. I can tell you the second they just opened here, because all of a sudden there was a mom and 2 little girls that sprinted in front of me here at section 106, 107 at Capital One Arena, and they had their pen and their autograph, whatever poster they were going to get ready. It was like, it is time to go. And I don't know whether they were here for the Mystics. I don't know whether they're here for the Sky, whether it was Angel, whether it's Ariel Atkins, Shakira Austin, whether it's here for all of them. But there are already fans starting to walk through here. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think the doors opened for at least another 10 minutes. And that is not an experience that we had during Wizards season. I know that we were here later in the year, and the Wizards did not have a year that is nearly as exciting as hopefully the years to come will be. But I think there's just you want to see it in person. You want the palpable excitement of this moment for the W. Put all the nonsense of this week aside, of which there is some nonsensical nonsense and some serious discussion nonsense that we talked about off the top of the show. The moment and what it means to so many people, you can see it because they're literally here.
And I think that also goes to show, why they, in the first place, moved the game from ESA to Capital One, because I think they just knew that it was these kinds of games were going to get these kinds of draws, and it's on full display right now. I would love to be a fly on the wall outside of Capital One just to see how long the lines may or may not be, but I would assume, it's going to be people filing in, periodically, floods of people just, ushering in, just to, be able to get down, get a good seat, scout the scene, and as you just talked about, kids wanting to get there just to be able to have an opportunity to get an autograph like one of these players that they love, and things of that nature.
For sure. And I think that's the thing that really strikes me is, while the adults are screaming at each other, just saying the dumbest possible things, the kids are like, I want to go to the game. And I think that one thing that I almost said this to Meghan when she was here, is it's not just little girls. And obviously it's tremendous that little girls now have an example to look up to. And as Meghan said, it's Meghan. Meghan didn't say that about herself. I will say it. Little girl can look up and be like, I want to be Meghan McPeak. I want to be the broadcaster who calls the game. They can look up to the players, obviously, but to the coaches, the strength coaches. Who knows what other jobs within an organization a kid might be like, oh, who's that person? And if her parent knows and is like, that's the whatever. A little girl might be like, oh, I want to do that. And general manager, scout, there's so many different avenues where they can get involved in the game. But I think one of the real breakthrough points that I've always kind of kept an eye on, whether it was back when I was with the Spirit or obviously now, is it's little boys too. There's going to be tomorrow here little boys wearing 22 Iowa shirts, and we saw it all over the country as Caitlin was still with Iowa, and we've seen it all over the country now with her in the W, and we'll be back here tomorrow, by the way, broadcasting live ahead of that game as well. But, I want to see a little boy wearing a Shakira Austin jersey or an Ariel Atkins jersey, because it's just as Meghan was saying, that's the game recognized game level. That it's just to a little kid, this is basketball. And it's something that is, great about the W, and certainly I hope that obviously tickets continue to be more in demand, and that might change the availability of them for sure. But it's something that I think women's sports has always been great at. Is it's hey, we're while we also are looking for young professionals and fans of all kinds, we're not going to obviously discriminate. If you want to pay us money and come watch the game, then come on down. But it has been, family friendly, and I think that's reflected in the athletes. And that's something that I've always really appreciated about the women's game. And if you go to a Spirit game or you come to a Mystics game, the time that the athletes will spend with the fans is just different. Like, sure, Steph Curry or Jason Tatum or whoever will sign autographs before a game for sure. But the time that these athletes take with the fans is just different. And they're equally great as athletes. They could just be like, that's not what the NBA guys do. Like, I'll sign a few as I head in after shoot around, but I'm not going to come out after and say a bunch of hellos, whatever. But if you go to a Spirit game, for instance, like, it's actually, as someone who would like to say hi to a couple of players as their friend, it's annoying because I have to wait 45 minutes to an hour for them to get done signing autographs. And, like, I say that tongue in cheek. Yeah, sure, it'd be nice if I could just be like, hey, what's up to my friends, and then get out of there. But, like, legit, it is 45 minutes, an hour after the game until literally the security is like, all right, we got to shut this thing down. They're signing, poster after poster, which, by the way, when you've just played 90 minutes of incredibly intense soccer, like, I would not do that. They are better people than me. I would be like, I'm going to go get a protein shake and shower because I'm tired and gross and exhausted and I want to go home and sleep. And instead, at 9 o'clock at night after a 7 p.m. game, they're out there signing and signing and signing and signing. And it's a great thing. Like, I wish the men did that as well. I wish sports was that way, that we could all have those kind of experiences where it's, hey, you should meet your heroes because they're awesome. But to see this moment where people are here over an hour before tip-off, where little girls are like, I can't wait to go meet my hero who I want to be one day, and to have that vision when 30 years ago that literally was not the case is fantastic. And for as much as I want to try to not oversell the moment in any kind of way that undercuts the competition, I like to keep the talk. Like, my saying has always been, as I've told you how many times when we've discussed topics, the way I approach growing women's sports, as much as that is a goal for me, is to treat it like sports, because that's what, at the end of the day, we're doing here. We're talking about the competition, and it's the world's best athletes, and it's awesome. But if you don't have the perspective of taking the time to reflect in the moment, you're also missing something. And that just really struck me, seeing the fans already streaming in an hour before tip here at Capital One Arena.
I'm not going to lie, Craig, when you're talking about those fans that, wait after the game to, go talk down to the player or talk to the players, get autographs, I'm definitely guilty for being one of those guys. Because the first Mystics game I actually went to, security ended up, pushing me all the way out the bit. I'm like, I'm trying to wait. Then I can't get on the floor because, I know a couple of the players and things of that nature. So, I just wanted to touch base, but sometimes security does make it hard.
Yeah.
But
they don't mess around over at ESA.
No, they don't. But I will be there today, and I will make sure, I get my fist pounds in, my hey, my high, my buys. Like, I'm going to get them in today, Craig, because I'll be there.
You see. But, but not at the expense of the kids.
No.
Always. It's like when you go to the baseball game. You can catch the home run. You better turn around and give that baseball to a kid.
Yeah.
By the way, if you want a little, if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see it. A little Team 980 stress ball.
Oh,
squeeze it. Nice. Play catch. Don't throw it at your sister or your brother. Please don't do that. But if you're coming to the arena, we're right outside section 106, 107. I guess we're really outside section 106. But the 106, 107 sign, which I think is a head nod to our sister station down the way. Makes it easy, right? 106.7. Which, by the way, I will say this. Folks were saying, we had our big station announcement, and I had a tweet that was like, I really, want to listen, but the signal gets a little squirrely for me west of wherever. I think they might have said Gainesville. Maybe it was Vienna, somewhere in Virginia. Don't forget, you can always listen to Team 980, of course, on the free Odyssey app, which if you have a car that's been built since 2010, probably has Bluetooth, and you can just Bluetooth the digital signal to your car if you're driving around. Or if you have an HD radio, which also most cars in the last decade or so have the HD radios. If you go to your HD radio and hit 106.7 HD2, it is us. It is the Team 980. So you can get nice, clear digital FM style clear signal radio, not only for my show and for our show and Russell and everybody during the day, but for the Mystics games that will now be broadcasting live at night here on the Team 980. When we get back, perhaps the biggest story in sports in general today is Dan Hurley, the UConn men's basketball coach, is looking like he might be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And that happened out of kind of nowhere. What's that mean for him, for the Lakers? And what about this argument that some folks are making about this is the end of college sports? We'll talk about it all next on The Hoffman Show. is the final hour of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, and on the Team 980 tonight, which you can also listen to the game on the Odyssey app, Mystics and Sky. First ever broadcast of Mystics on the radio is tonight here on the Team 980. It'll be Meghan McPeak and Christy Winter-Scott on the call, simulcast from Monumental Sports Network. So even if Christy and Meghan are having a conversation on the radio as you drive home, and then you want to listen when you get on and turn on your television, it'd be the same announcers. That's actually great. And plus Meghan said she's gonna radio up the call a little bit, so you'll know what's going on. What a treat! What a treat! Very excited. That partnership announced this morning. Every single game that's on Monumental for the rest of the season will be simulcast here on the Team 980 morning, noon, or night. We are live at Capital One Arena ahead of that game. We'll be back here tomorrow as well ahead of Caitlin Clark's first trip to D.C. and the Fever in town. But the Mystics and Sky tonight, will preview it more as we go in the hour. But Anthony, back in our studios in Southeast D.C., Mr. Laker fan Anthony Haney, super producer of the program, Anthony Haney, we woke up to a Woj bomb this morning.
Yeah, we did.
We woke up to a Woj bomb this morning. The Woj bomb said that not Bob Hurley, wrong Hurley brother, Dan Hurley, the head coach of the Connecticut Huskies, back-to-back national champion in men's college basketball, is being offered a massive sum of money, or they're preparing to offer him a massive sum of money. And the they here is the Los Angeles Lakers. Whoa. And this is extra whoa because the former understudy of Adrian Wojnarowski, which is a fun subplot here, Shams Charania, who is a fine NBA reporter in his own right, had reported all the way back yesterday that the Lakers were zeroing in on J.J. Redick as their head coach. Instead, it looks like Hurley is the leader in the clubhouse. He's about to be offered a ton of money. It does feel like he would take it by the way that Woj is phrasing things. And I think there is the obvious right here in front of our face discussion of what do we make of Hurley for the Lakers. But then there's also this side discussion that if you want 3 hours of maniacs yelling at each other discussing, you can listen to the podcast of the Chris Russell Show today. Those are their words, not mine. Russell and Linnell got into it about kind of the state of college basketball and the state of college sports today, if you want to go listen to some good old yelling sports talk radio. But I think most interestingly, right in front of our faces, Anthony, you have a guy coming from the college game, clearly one of the best coaches, that is willing to take this job, and it is one where you are expected to come in and win now. And while there is a long-termism thinking to this, that he's a guy that can develop a culture and be the leader of a future rebuild, if you're the Lakers, like, you're also not – you're making this hire knowing that LeBron can leave this summer. And I actually really respect them for that. That if they think Bob Hurley is the right guy for them long-term – Dan Hurley is the right guy for them long-term, then they should absolutely – make this move, and I think he's obviously can coach at a high level. He's back-to-back national champion. But he also can be a guy that sets a tone for them moving forward.
Yeah, and I just think the Lakers having a long-term or thinking long-term as far as their head coach goes is like long overdue. They've had too many coaches come 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and it's more so I think Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka, I think it's more so on them, doing away with these coaches because, again, I think these coaches, they do a good enough job. You make it to the Western Conference Finals. You make it to the semifinals. Like, you're constantly making the play. You end up winning a championship, and that's still never enough to, give you enough leeway to build the roster or do with the roster what you want to do. And it's more so, I guess, the power-ups controlling the situation, and they have the right to do so.
100%. And by the way, this is them learning from their mistake, maybe finally. Like, this is the mistake they made that killed them at the end of the Kobe era, was they just kind of said, yeah, dude, whatever. And they gave him that insane contract that killed them for not just 2 years while he was playing on. It was like 2 years, like $50 million or whatever it was. That would just, for a guy coming off Achilles at his age, there was no reason to give him that contract. It was an extension for like a lifetime achievement award, but the salary cap doesn't care about your lifetime achievements. And so they just sacrificed a half decade of basketball, and it took LeBron James deciding that he wanted to sign there as the thing that saved them. And now if they're like, hey, LeBron, if you want to stay, like, we'll happily keep you. But LeBron has basically said, like, I don't have a lot of time left. He has been way more open to retiring soon than he ever has before. This isn't Tom Brady that's like, I might play forever, and then I'm going to retire and come back and retire and come back, and now he's been gone. He's like, I don't know. Never count me out. Like, this is not him. This is not Brett Favre. Like, LeBron is eventually going to hang this thing up, and it very well might be after this season. And the Lakers going, okay, we need to think about post-LeBron versus everything that we do is about trying to win a title this season at the expense of what happens after. That's responsible management of a basketball team, something that the Los Angeles Lakers don't feel like they've done in 2 decades.
Yeah, I just think the Lakers' problem in general, not just with the coaching staff, it's just their forward thinking. They're only thinking, 1 to 2 years in advance. They're not thinking 5, 10 years down the road, and I think that's been a detriment to the roster itself. You look at the guys that they let go. They let the KCPs go. Like, they let the Kyle Kuzmas walk out the door. Just the talent that they had there in general, I don't know what their forward thinking was, to be honest.
They went star hunting, which is like, it's one thing to go hunt for stars because they can play. It's another, and they fit what you want. It's another to hunt for stars because they have name value and maybe grew up close by. And that's what they did for Russell Westbrook. He very clearly did not fit there. And the fact that Russ adapted his game, like, I have so much, this is a sidebar, but I have so much appreciation for Russell Westbrook as a basketball player and how he's handled the last 3 years of his career, because he made it work. Like, he's still Russell Westbrook. He wasn't going to turn into an incredible three-point shooter overnight because that's what they needed. Like, he was still him. But he tried his best to make it work in L.A. And then his willingness to come off the bench this year for the Clippers and then just, okay, this guy's hurt, now let me start, let me do it. Like, his ability to, and his adaptability, his willingness to change what he's doing based off the team needs to the best that he could, realizing that he was consistently a square peg trying to be shoved into a round hole. Like, I appreciate that on a human level about Russell Westbrook. For what Rob Pelinka and them did, nonsense, craziness. And I hope that the next phase, because the NBA is better when the Lakers are good, right? I hope that the next phase of them is spent being responsible, which is going to be interesting because Rob Pelinka, a former agent, he's made some okay moves as a GM, but certainly not a guy that you're like, oh, that's the best scout I've ever seen. And that's kind of the phase that they need to go in. Because I think the other thing, too, is like the Lakers still are in some ways a family business where like you have other teams that are run like private equity type of guys like Josh Harris or like major businesses like Josh Harris. The Lakers are often described as still like this family business that is a lot smaller as an organization despite their funds and despite their prestige. I think what I'm hoping is like a guy like Dan Hurley comes in and is like, we got to do better than this. And like that organization kind of grows up and evolves into what a modern NBA organization looks like.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, though, Craig. Like, I love Hurley. I think what he's done at the collegiate level, I think it's Hall of Fame worthy, to be honest. You go back-to-back championships and also what you've done before those championships. But I just feel as though if Hurley leaves, man, I don't know if I can look at college basketball the same, just because there's just been so many greats leaving. Like, I want to say, like, you got Kelvin what is his name?
Kelvin Sampson at Houston. But
at Houston, like, who Bill Self at Kansas, Tom Izzo, of course. But after that, like, I can't think of, like, any household names that have, been in the game for so long, just because we've seen the Roy Williams leave. We've seen Coach K leave. We've seen all these
Jay Wright,
Jim Boeheim. Yep.
Boeheim would be so mad if we didn't put him in there.
I was about to. I felt bad because I was like, hold on.
He was around a long time.
Yeah. Just what it's going to do
The
for
nicest thing I can say about Jim Boeheim. He was around a long time.
the college basketball.
And I wonder
scene.
why they
It's
don't
gonna
invite me to any of the alumni events. You know, maybe
Do they
that's
have your
it.
email
Maybe
still?
They certainly ask me for money. They have the email for that.
Okay.
I tell you what, though, I actually want to talk about this next. I want to talk about the college basketball side of this next. So we'll talk about that. And then at 6:30, as more and more fans keep piling in here at Capital One Arena, we will turn our eyes towards tonight, Mystics and Sky. We're live at Capital One Arena. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. We are live at Capital One Arena ahead of Mystics and Sky tonight. We're previewing that game in just a few minutes. And we did earlier with Meghan McPeak at 5 p.m. If you just can't wait, you can rewind in the Odyssey app to hear our chat with the play-by-play voice of the Mystics, who you will hear calling the game for the first time ever tonight, Mystics and Sky, and for every game for the rest of the season that's on Monumental Sports Network. You will hear a simulcast on the Team 980. Before we turn our attention fully towards that game tonight, though, Anthony, the report that Dan Hurley is headed to the Lakers potentially, that the Lakers are trying to lure him with a quote-unquote massive offer, according to Adrian Wojnarowski at ESPN, also leaves a conversation about college basketball. And I think this conversation is a good one to be had because there is, like, I just think the framing of it by some people is wrong. Shocker. People have different opinions about things that we're making predictions about. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. But when we talk about this, I think some people immediately jump to this is the end of college sports. That if a coach like Dan Hurley leaves, and if guys like Nick Saban are retiring on college football, or on the college football side, if you have Coach K being like, I'm good. And I think a big one on the basketball side, Jay Wright. Like, Jay Wright's not old. Jay Wright immediately popped right into the broadcast booth, and he's like, I'm probably do this for another 20 years. Maybe not 20. Jay Wright's older than you think he is. He's just young and dapper, or well-dressed and dapper, young-looking and dapper. But if all these legendary coaches are like, I don't really want to deal with this new reality, people are like, this is the end of the sport. And I don't think that's true. I think it's just a changing of the guard. And it's perfectly understandable. These guys have been paid very well. They don't need the money. And so if they're going to have to change how they do business, why would they do that when they can just go retire or be on television? I mean, Saban didn't retire. He probably is getting paid, not what he got paid at Alabama, but he's getting paid a lot of money to be on College Game Day. And he doesn't have to recruit. He doesn't have to deal with the NIL stuff because he has to learn that. He's got to learn how to do the job differently. So you can either have to, at 60-plus years old, do on-the-job training, or you can sit on your money when you've made tens of millions of dollars in a lot of cases for these true legends of the game that we're talking about. Why wouldn't you just sit on your money or go be on television and get to talk about the game, which is not changing, as opposed to having to deal with it? If they totally change, if I'm still doing this in 30 years and I'm in my 60s and they totally change what doing a radio show is, I'm not going to want to learn it. If I've made enough money to retire, I'm going to be like, I'm good. That's the nature of being a human being. Some of the younger coaches, they're embracing it and they're figuring out how to do it. And I think if you're a guy like Dan Hurley and you love to coach, and the coaching and the teaching and that part is the part that you enjoy, and you can go get paid more money, by the way, with all due respect, to not live in Storrs, Connecticut, which, Ant, have you been to Storrs, Connecticut?
Nah, I haven't, but I just feel like all
You know what's never going to happen? You're not going to wind up there by accident.
Nice.
It's a fine place to go to school, but it's a cow field in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that.
No. Like, it's the kind of place that you take one road to get to. And if that road's congested, getting there's not a good time.
Oh my God!
I do have
one
some,
way in, one way out.
I do have some funny stories about getting to Storrs, Connecticut as someone, because back in my day, Connecticut and Syracuse were in the Big East, so I have done a couple of games and covered a couple of games in Storrs, Connecticut. The point is, if you're going to get paid more money to not have to recruit, to just coach basketball, and not live in Storrs, Connecticut, with all due respect to Storrs, you're taking that freaking job. This is not a reflection of the massive culture shift in college basketball, more so than it is you get maybe the most prestigious job in the entire sport for more money than you're making now to live in a better place, not have to recruit, and deal with the new reality of college basketball and learn a new landscape as NIL is changing. And by the way, one more thing, Anthony, to add on to my little list here, the NCAA feels like a sinking ship because they refuse to regulate themselves and are now going to let others do it for them in a way that nobody really is going to like.
Craig, you raised a lot of valid points.
I try my best.
Just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, sir.
If you're Hurley, though, I have a question for you. If you're Hurley, what are your non-negotiables, though, in your negotiations with the Lakers? Because we've seen what the Lakers have done to these coaches over, the last, I want to say, like 13 years, 14 years since Phil Jackson.
For sure. I mean, it's simple. It's years and money.
Years, money, but also roster. I think the roster over. I think having autonomy. I mean, having the freedom to control and do what you want with the roster.
You're not going to get it. That gets into the outside of Pop.
Okay.
Who else is a coach and GM in the NBA? It's just not how the league works. And while I understand it, I want input. If I can get a clause that says Rob Pelinka's got to call me before he does something so that I know that I'm not going to get rejection power, but I want to be consulted. And if he doesn't, he has to pay me an extra $5 million of Genie Bus's money, then sure, get that. Let your agent go to town on that. But realistically, no coach in the league outside of Pop has roster power. That's just not how this league is set up, and nor should it be. It's too hard to scout. It's too hard to watch other teams at the level you need to make trades and understand all that, and also coach your team. You have to have your eyes on your team as the head coach. But if you have years in money, at the end of the day, you're harder to fire because that's a lot of dead money that Jeannie Buss and the Buss family is not going to want to pay. So you're going to have to be disastrously bad to get fired. And if you do, you have the security of the money. And by the way, if Dan Hurley became available, literally every college that wasn't Michigan State with Izzo or 5 others would probably fire their coach to hire Dan Hurley if he was available. He's that good as a college coach. So you have your fallback. You'd have your paycheck. At that point, what more do you realistically want?
Yeah, I was more so just looking at the leeway that, if I'm Hurley, I would want. But I think you said it perfectly in terms of the years and money and that being a factor. But we've also seen coaches, get years and money and still end up.
But guess what? It's not that money's guaranteed. Yeah. You sign your name on the dotted line with 5 years at $12 million per or whatever it is. Yeah. You get there, maybe even more with whatever Ty Lue just got. But I think the other thing outside of contract negotiations, I want years and money if I'm Hurley. On a human level, I want to feel comfortable. I want to discuss things with Pelinka. I want to discuss things with the Buss family. I want to discuss things, if I can, with LeBron. I want to understand what this year is going to look like. I want to understand, hey, man, if I sign on this line, are you going to be coachable? Because I gotta be able to set an example for these younger guys, and this is a different deal. And if you undercut me, I'm screwed not only this year, but for the rest of the time that I'm here and those guys are here. So we can't have that. I will have an open door policy with you. You can come to my office anytime. But if some crap comes out in the media, I'm not going to be happy about it. And have that man-to-man discussion with LeBron. And I think at this stage in LeBron's career, he probably is going to be I got you, coach.
Yeah.
For a year, I can do that. Because LeBron, look, I think LeBron's the GOAT. I know that I'm not looking to start that fight now. I'm just saying, my perspective, LeBron's the GOAT. But his history with coaches ain't great in terms of longevity.
Yeah.
And there's probably a multitude of reasons for that, but it's not great. So there's that. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, more from the reason that we are here. Here is Capital One Arena. Sky and Mystics coming up tonight here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We are live on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, spreading joy at Capital One Arena in the form of tiny foam basketballs that we are handing out, and hopefully people are also enjoying the show. Mystics and Sky tonight here at Capital One Arena, which is why we're here, and tomorrow night we'll be here as well ahead of the Fever and their first trip to town on the year. Is also tonight the debut radio broadcast for the Mystics this game against the Sky, and every single Mystics game for the rest of the season that is on Monumental Sports Network, which is most of them. A couple national broadcasts here and there will be simulcast here on the Team 980. So that announcement this morning, very, very excited to be the radio home of the Mystics. And, well, Anthony, who's back in our studio in D.C., or in a different part of D.C., because I'm obviously in the heart of D.C. as well. Anthony, they need to get off the schneid tonight. We got to address the elephant in the arena, and that's that zero that's currently on the wrong side of the dash and the 9 in the Mystics record. They are 0-9 on the season. They have been so tremendously close. They've been very competitive, and obviously the next two nights, you're facing two other teams that are in the bottom quarter of the standings with you. This is a winnable game. Tomorrow is a winnable game. The nature of this league is that everybody is good. There are not enough spots yet. The league needs to expand. It is expanding, obviously, over the next couple of years. But the talent is deep. There is no such thing as an easy game. But relatively speaking, this is maybe the most winnable game that they've had on their schedule yet, just by the nature of the opponent, even though Chicago is tough and has played teams like the Liberty incredibly close earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, but injuries have also, killed us and, hurt us. Have the injury report come out?
I knew you were going to ask that. I needed you to talk longer so I can look it up.
Just because, injuries to Brittany Sykes, injuries to Shakira Austin, also not having Elena Deladon, that also hurts us to an extent. But not having two of your better players during a rebuilding year, that's going to, hurt the chances of us, going out to, get wins. And again, we have been competitive. A lot of the younger players have been able to, get experience. But we want to turn that experience into, wins. And if we get healthy, we can definitely, get a couple of dubs.
For sure. And I did just you talked long enough. I did get a chance to look at the injury report. It's not good. Sykes is out. Austin is out tonight. Certainly hoping that on the first of the back-to-back they're out, that at least Shakira can play tomorrow. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the Mystics can generate offense. I think that's the biggest challenge for them with Brittany out specifically, which is interesting because she's such a great defensive player. But defensively, they've been okay. Like, obviously, they're better when Shakira's in there because she's a rim protector. But they very, very much need to find ways to generate offense down the stretch and take some of this off of Ariel Atkins' shoulders. Ariel's an Olympian. She is a tremendous player. But she has never been a leading scorer before. She's never had this responsibility, and it is really tough to elevate, and it is far tougher when all of a sudden behind you do not have a solid second option that you relied upon or that you thought you'd have, or a third option. And Shakira was the second option, and Brittany was the third option, both as a creator and as a scorer. And earlier in the season, they were right in those games. Every single minute that Sykes has played this year, pretty much, they've been competitive. I can pull up the numbers in a moment, potentially, in terms of the plus-minus on the season with her on the floor. But they have, it is rough. And I think that if I think about players that need to step up and be a little bit more effective offensively, scoring-wise, Maisha Hines-Allen has got to finish a little bit more. Maisha has these stretches where she's always been a fantastic shot creator, and she goes through stretches hot and cold with her finishing. And they need her to knock down some jumpers. They need her to finish at the rim, to not commit offensive fouls, which is something that she and I talked about before the season. Like, it's time for her to understand how strong she is, that she can't knock people over, even though she doesn't feel like often that she delivers the force and that people flop against her in the whole thing. Like, eventually it's consistent enough that you got to fix it. And I think that is that's kind of the key for them is get a little bit more scoring off the bench, which is hard when your bench players are starting. And then obviously they need to keep up the consistency on the defensive end. But Maisha is someone that I think can big time step up because she's so capable as a shot creator on a team that needs more shot creation.
I agree. Offensively, I think defensively, especially tonight against the Chicago Sky, and I think Megan was talking about it earlier in terms of having an Angel Reese who's phenomenal on the offensive boards, and Cardosa as well, who's a great rebounder in her own respect. I just feel as though if we can have the same thing on the other side, we be able to, get those second chance opportunities, crash the boards, get out in transition. I think that'll be the best way for the Mystics to, get the offense going because half-court offense has been a struggle for us, to be honest. So just being able to get out in transition, turn, turnovers into points, I think that would be the best way for us to, capitalize on the other side of the ball.
No doubt about it. Pulling up is -8 on the season in the minutes, the 127 minutes that she has played. And Brittany Sykes is dead even. They were tied in the 36 minutes that Slim played this year. And that seems like a fairly relatively important data point when you talk about the Mystics this year and their struggles without Brittany. And it just is that simple sometimes where, like, in a sport where there are 5 players on the floor at once, if you have one that has that remarkable of an impact on both ends, where she's one of your lead shot creators, she's one of your leading scorers, she's one of your leaders, and she is arguably the best on-ball defender in the entire league, it's really hard to win without that. And in some ways this season, I know it was a rebuilding year, I know all that, but if Ariel had the support of Sykes and Austin on a consistent basis, I think that this team is much closer to 500 and is fighting for the last playoff space, where they've lost so many of these one-possession games versus being 0-9. And despite the fact that, like, Julie Van Loos played really well in Slim's absence, it's just a different level that that Sykes brings you to that the Mystics have not had this year. To your point, though, Anthony, huge, if not the biggest single factor tonight is going to be the battle on the boards. By the way, one other player I'll mention, Shatori Walker-Kimbrough. If she can hit a few more shots, I think she's another one that can have a big night tonight. Obviously, it's a huge night for Aaliyah Edwards. And this is totally unfair, but Aaliyah is always going to be compared to Angel Reese because ultimately she's the player that got selected right before Angel. And in a night where, as I'm sitting here at Cap One, I see a lot of Sky jerseys, I see a lot of Angel Reese fans here. Her ability, not just from a narrative standpoint, but if you're trying to, win the basketball game, keep Angel Reese off the boards. That is the matchup. I'm assuming Aaliyah is going to continue to start as she has with Shakira off with the hip injury and the minutes maintenance. Like, this is a massive, massive night for Aaliyah Edwards, who, by the way, is coming off probably her best game as a pro when she returned back to Connecticut in the loss to the Sun the other night.
Yeah, that matchup is definitely something I'm watching just because of, again, Aaliyah got taken right before Angel. But also, I think in terms of offensive output, I think Aaliyah can also, be effective. We've seen her score at the rim. We've also seen her shoot the mid-range as well. It's just more so like who's going to be able to, like, get those people the ball. And I think for Ariel, it's tough just because if she is the primary ball handler, sometimes she's going to need somebody to, give her a break and use the, manage the offense. And I think that's what we're sort of kind of like just having trouble finding. You reach out. I mean, you mentioned Maisha Hines-Allen. I think that's a good option, but we also need somebody else outside of that. Yeah,
you need Shatori Walker-Kimbrough to step up. You need Aaliyah to be able to be, not with any regularity, but be a shot creator, even if it's for herself. Stephanie Dolson needs to knock down shots. Carly Samuelson, like, your shooters need to hit. But in terms of shot creation, it is definitely going to fall on those players that we mentioned. By the way, if you look at the assist numbers for the year, Van Loo's got 50 through these 9 games. Next highest is Atkins with 29, and then Hines Allen with 19. So need a little bit more playmaking, which is, what happens when you miss a player like Brittany Sykes, who is excellent in that category. All right, that game coming up 18 minutes away from the scheduled tip-off here at Capital One Arena. Mystics and Sky tonight. The first ever radio broadcast for the Mystics is right here on the Team 980, and we've got them all season long. And again, we'll be back at Capital One Arena tomorrow ahead of the Fever game as well. As for the rest of this here radio show, the final 15 minutes or so of it, real things, real people said into real microphones. How we wrap up every show next here on the Team 980. wrapping up from Capital One Arena. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we stream live daily 4 to 7 on YouTube at the Team 980. Also, if anyone's listening, as you're getting prepared to listen to your first Mystics game live on the radio, Mystics and Sky at the top of the hour. You can subscribe to all our women's sports coverage at Hoffman W Sports on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@HoffmanW Sports. All right, Anthony, NBA Finals tonight. Of course, we're going to be both here for the W game, but 8:30 tonight, NBA Finals begin. They're playing for a championship, and we need to make a prediction. Celtics hosting the first two. They're the higher seed. Or I guess they have the home court advantage here with their 64-win regular season. The Dallas Mavericks have the best player in the series for my money in Luka Doncic. Who you got? How many games?
Super sidebar, Craig. I hear somebody singing gracefully in the background, and oh my gosh, she is going federal. Oh my goodness.
This is one of the best national anthems I've ever heard in my life. We got to hear her warm up before the show, and now I don't know who it is. If someone wants to pitch us a name, we'll give her a shout out because she is ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
Bravo
Yes.
on the anthem as we're talking our radio show over. Whoops.
Now to your question.
Yes.
So I suck at predictions, Craig. I don't know why
You
you asked me to go
don't
first.
say.
I don't know why you asked me to go first, but I'm going to predict.
That way I know I just need to go opposite you, obviously.
The Dallas Mavericks are going to win in 6, baby. Let's get it.
You just can't help yourself, huh?
All right, I'm going to go Celtics in 6.
No,
you can be right. I
No.
want you to be right, Craig.
No, I was picking the Celtics, so you stick with the Mavs. I've already made a pick somewhere today. I think we did it I did a members only YouTube live stream earlier today with my guy Tony Squares. I think I said Celtics on that. If not, it was in my head. I'm going Celtics in 6. Look, I think that Luka's the best player in the series, and thus my philosophy of picking the best player in the series and typically being right runs up into a bit of an issue. But I think that Jason Tatum's the second best player in the series. I think that the third best player is a competition between Jaylen Brown and Kyrie Irving. And then let's even give it to Kyrie, right? Let's say he's the third. It's real close, and it's real close between the top two, even though it's definitely Luka. The next, 4 guys are all Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
And from a styles make fight standpoint, if I have to pick a team with a roster to guard the Mavs, I don't know how much better I can do than what Boston has, where you have Jalen and JT to guard Luka and Drew Holiday as an option and Derek White as an option and Kristaps Porzingis as a rim protector and Al Horford as a wily veteran who will somehow figure out how to do something well in this series and make some kind of positive impact. And then on Kyrie, if I get one dude to guard him in the entire league, it's probably Drew Holiday. And if I get a second choice, it might be Derek White. That's how good those guys are. And they're at the right positions. You add in, I don't know who guards Porzingis, and it's probably Gafford and Lively, just for sheer size purposes. Maybe Maxi Kleba and some of the 4s get out there. But if they can pull Gafford and Lively away from the rim, which is what's made Dallas's defense. I saw a stat that was rolling on NBA TV last night on their bottom line as I was watching the Wings Aces game. The number 1 shooting percentage against player in the NBA playoffs, a.k.a. the guy who is, when he's around the shot, lowest field goal percentage for the opponent, is Daniel Gafford. The third is Derek Lively. Yeah. So they've got rim, if they can pull those guys away from the rim with Porzingis and they're playing 5-out basketball, there goes the Mavs defensive scheme that's been dominant. So I'll take Boston. I like the matchups. I think I like the depth. They've been here before, a lot of them. Drew's got a ring. White comes out of that San Antonio system. JT and JB were here 3 years ago. They're hungry. They're well built. Sometimes you don't overthink it. Just pick the best team, even if Luka's the best player, and obviously he is the way he plays. He's able to control entire series. He's a menace of a basketball player. But I'll pick the Celtics in 6.
Okay. I mean, I hear you, Craig. I hear you, and I'm not going to go too long. But if I'm the Mavs, I'm not scared about Porzingis and the matchup with my centers, because my guys can move. They can get out there and defend on the perimeter.
It's not about them moving with him. It's about that, one, nobody's tall enough to guard Porzingis.
You're right.
He's 7 foot 800. But it's also, if he's out on the perimeter, they're not standing by the rim. And they can't, there's not a player like in the Western Conference Finals. Their man is Kyle Anderson. And it's like, if Kyle Anderson beats us shooting threes, we're just going to lose, but he ain't going to do it. There's no guy like that. There's nowhere to hide those guys as a man-to-man matchup standpoint where they can just kind of babysit the rim. It's just not a thing.
You're right.
I'm
still going with the Mavs.
Good. That means I'm going to be right. Yes. Do we have time for real things? What's our out time?
56:15.
Oh, yeah, we got time. It's time for real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. One of the funniest social media videos that I've seen in a while, whoever's running social media, the admin for the NFL account, was at the rookie symposium and just faked out a bunch of rookies, which is easy to do because they're rookies. They'll do whatever you tell them. And this is how that went.
I'm passing the phone to someone who thinks this is a skincare routine video.
Every morning and night I put Cetaphil on me. I use the Cetaphil face wash and also the Cetaphil lotion. As well.
I'm passing the phone
Hold
to someone
on. You got to pause it, Ann. Xavier Legette from the Panthers, former South Carolina receiver. Just the absolute gift that keeps on giving and will give on forever.
I'm passing the phone to someone who thinks this is an outfit of the day video.
Hey everybody, it's Caleb here, number 18 for the Chicago Bears, QB. We got the one armband Kobe edition. We obviously have the lovely classic Chicago Bears jersey and logos and all of that.
For a man that was in GQ, not very good at outfit of the day videos.
The stripes, all of it. Shout out the Bears.
I'm passing the phone to someone who thinks this is the breathe out and yell challenge.
Hold on, and hold on. We're going to have to pause there. One, because we're almost out of time. And two, because I had not heard of that before. The breathe out and yell challenge. Have you heard of this?
Nah, I don't know.
So I guess you breathe out and then you try to yell because you don't have any air left. So you got to try it. All right. Well, we would try it, but we're out of time. Mystic Sky is next here on the Team 980.